In this video, we're going to talk about the math challenge. In order to understand the math challenge, we need to talk about the history of the math challenge. In the past, here's how our curriculum looked. Right now we see Math Pass Part 1, Part 2, and then you do the math challenge. But it wasn't always like that. It used to be Part 1, Part 2, and then many other equivalent worksheets. This was a really long list of about 15 or so worksheets. There was functions and graphs, combinatorics, manipulating exponents, remainders in the number line, I mean, so many different topics. After you did all those topics, you would then do the math challenge. The math challenge had 1 or 2 questions from each of those main sequence worksheets. And if you got one of those wrong, you would redo that main sequence worksheet and then retry the math challenge. What we realized is that for a pretty small percentage of our students, that just wasn't necessary. Some of our students were just really good at math, really advanced at math, and having them go through all those worksheets was basically busy work. So we changed things a bit. So now we do Math Pass Part 1, Part 2, and then we go directly to the math challenge. And the math challenge still has 1 or 2 questions from each of those massive main sequence worksheets. And the rules are basically the same. If you get one wrong, you end up doing that main sequence worksheet. In the past, you would redo it. Now you just do it. And of course, it's reinforced with the review questions and pop quiz questions and all that kind of stuff. The math challenge, because of that, the math challenge is basically going to be the process through which you're going to actually learn all these advanced topics. The vast majority of your time, for most of you, is going to be spent on the math challenge. It's the hardest part. That's where you're going to learn literally everything. Now, these numbers here can be a little tricky, so let me make sure you guys are understanding those. Here we've marked, say that it's a reasonable number of hours of the math challenge is 20 hours. That's just 20 hours for the questions on the math challenge itself. That doesn't include all the responsive worksheets. So if you end up, and this is what most students need to sort of do every single one of the main sequence worksheets that's connected to the math challenge. And if that's you, it's not going to take a total of 20 hours. You might spend 20 hours on the math challenge, but you're going to probably spend 3 to 7 or 8 hours or maybe even more on each of those main sequence responsive worksheets. They used to be part of the standard main sequence here, and now they're part of the responsives. What you'll see also is down here, this list of math responsive worksheets, you'll see us adding whatever it is that you need to do in particular, which for most people is every single worksheet. And if you're not sure if that's going to be you, it's probably going to be you. If you're really advanced at math, you might only do 1 or 2 of those worksheets, but most students, trust me on this, end up needing to do every single one of those worksheets without any exception. Here's where things can get tricky. I've unhidden the percentages, so you see that the percentages here for Math Pass Part 1 is 20%. Why is it so high? It's because when we do Math Pass Part 1, we're also going to end up fixing your ability to do factoring and combine like terms, multiplying monomials, long division, multiplication, graphing, you name it, everything, all the prerequisites are also covered there. Part 2 is only 10%, even though it's harder stuff, because we don't have to fix all the foundations here in Part 2. We fix all the foundations in Part 1. Now, the math challenge is a whopping 35%. It is the bulk of everything you do, and here's where things are going to get tricky. While you're working on the math challenge, which you're going to be doing for a really long time, unless you are extremely advanced at math, you're going to be doing the math challenge for a really long time. You'll spend 20 hours maybe on the questions themselves, or you might even spend less than that. You might only spend 5 or 6 hours on the actual worksheet itself, but you might spend 50, 60, 70 hours on the responsive worksheets to the math challenge. It is the bulk of the program. It used to be required for everyone. Now, almost everyone ends up doing every single one of them anyway, but if you're super advanced in math, you kind of get a fast track. During that time, this number is not going to increase at all. So what you need to do is don't freak out about this number. This number is going to stay at, at 30% for a really long time until you finish this, and then you'll get that big boost from the math challenge, which will bump you up to 65% once you have actually finished the math challenge and all the responsive worksheets. So the math challenge, I know it's just 1 row on this spreadsheet, but remember this 1 row represents about 15, 20 rows. It's not a small undertaking. It's not supposed to take a short period of time. It will probably take you a few months. It is the biggest, largest, and most important part of your Vohra Method SAT math training.